Coming up today on the Locked On Hornets podcast, no more preseason basketball. It's about to happen, the real thing. We'll go over the last preseason game. We got some sicko tea against the Pacers last night. We'll talk all about it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free. We are available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug banging the drums. Doug Branson. Branson banging drums, Branson. We can try to make it work. His Substack is everyhornetsboxscore.com.
Branson.
I like that as well. You can also find David Walker there. You guys went live last night. I saw because you couldn't help but talk about what was a wild preseason overtime game.
It was long, man. It was so long. Oh, if it had went to double OT, I was going to quit. I'll be honest with you.
How badly did you want, it was Nick Smith Jr., right, at the end of regulation. How bad did you want that shot to go in, the old heave-ho?
Well, I was conflicted because, if there was anyone that needed a shot to go in last night, it was Nick Smith Jr. But, I wanted that game to be over. I think we should ban preseason overtime, particularly if, you're not going to give me EC, you're not going to give me Dell. I got to watch this Pacers broadcast. We should not go to OT. That should be bad. But we did get some highlights, man. That Brandon dunk, thrunk. It wasn't really technically a dunk. It was a thrunk.
Yes.
But man, the way he got up on Myles Turner and used the arm to create the separation, I watched that and I went, man, when Brandon gets stronger, that's gonna go from a thrunk to a dunk. And Myles Turner is like a big dude. It was great.
Yeah, that was fun. Preseason thrunk action. That's always fun. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. And real quickly, I want to tell you about this episode being brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Yeah, I called it sicko tea. This is what we got. Hornets, they end up falling to the Pacers, 121-116 at the Gainbridge Fieldhouse, which that thing has been renamed 4 different times over the last 20 years. It's still Conseco to me. But yeah, they fall. The real story is Brandon, and it wasn't just because of the thrunk. It was because the man was on fire, especially in the first quarter where he just came out nuts from beyond the arc again. 5 of 7 from three-point range, 6 of 10 from the field. So his lone 2-point field goal attempt was the thrunk on Myles Turner. Ended up with 20 points, only played 19 minutes, so didn't see him in the second half. So here's what I think about Brandon, right? If our conversation is so much about where can LaMelo get and where can LaMelo go to and where can Brandon Miller go to this year, All NBA with LaMelo, I feel pretty confident that he'll put up the stats to warrant an all-star appearance. And I always count all-star appearances, even if it's this backdoor way of getting in, reserve. Those guys still count. That still is a star on your basketball reference page, and that matters. So I feel pretty confident LaMelo is going to put up those all-star appearances. Brandon, in year 2, not so sure. It's a lofty goal for somebody. Even with what he did his rookie year, it's still a lofty goal. If you are planting the seeds for a potential all-NBA debate-worthy season for LaMelo, and you're planting the seeds for an all-star-worthy season for Brandon Miller, this is what it would look like. It would look like LaMelo at the beginning of this preseason, and it would look like what Brandon Miller has done the last couple of games. He had one bad shooting night that was at home. I believe, either way, it was one bad shooting night. But this is what it would look like, Doug. And if so much of the NBA is based off of what your stars can do, the stars have been starring here in the preseason, and you love to see it as a Hornets fan.
Yeah, I think the conversation has gone from will Brandon Miller or LaMelo Ball be the leader of the team that goes to the next playoff series? I think that question has been answered. It's going to be Brandon Miller. Now the question becomes, how do you get Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball both on the same page playing well together? But Brandon Miller has come out and said, look, this is my – with his performances, he's saying this is my team now. 20 points, only 1 assist, no rebounds. That's going to be the next evolution of his game. If he wants to become Paul George, he's got to do it at every level. And so that's, still looking for that. But LaMelo Ball in this game, 3 points, 1 rebound, 4 assists, and an anomaly because he has been generally really good in the preseason as well. Both these guys shooting lights out from beyond the arc and taking a lot of threes. The team's taking a lot of threes. I want to talk about that too.
They're taking a ton, man. It's a barrage.
But, I mean, I don't know how you can watch this preseason and not think like, okay, Brandon Miller's getting out ahead of LaMelo Ball in sort of the hierarchy of where you want your offense running through.
Well, I mean, man, then you might be questioning me. I don't get that immediately. And I love what Brandon Miller gave you in the first half, especially the last 2 games. But, I mean, I still think LaMelo's going to handle the basketball a ton. And
I'm not saying that's not what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. Didn't we kind of have that question, too, after the first 2 preseason games with LaMelo? It felt like, okay, well, now this is LaMelo's team. Like, after the first 2 games, LaMelo's going crazy as well. He looks phenomenal. This is going to be LaMelo's team. Felt like we were talking about that, too, after the first 2 preseason games. LaMelo got some rest. Brandon played more. And I still think it's going to be LaMelo's team. I think Brandon, and for me, like the debate between the two, like I do think these 2 guys can coexist. I've often gone to the Washington Wizards comparison where like maybe Wizards fans would correct me on this. It didn't feel like it was Wall just taking over 100% of the time. I mean, I guess you would still go with Wall over Beal, but that backcourt had to work well enough both as like your 1A, 1B, whatever you want to define it as, in order for the Wizards to go to a deeper postseason run. It feels like you might have that here with LaMelo and Brandon, but I would put LaMelo at 1A, like right above. I still think he's going to be the guy that, one, you have some flexibility in closing time, but I still think LaMelo, to me, is the guy that can reach higher heights this year, even if it is so young for Brandon. I feel like we are still, like, for sure going to get an all-star year for LaMelo, and to me that would just mean that he's still somewhat the leader, at least on the court, even if it's not vocal.
So I absolutely think that these 2 can work well together, but it's not a given. I think that's going to be the challenge for the team. How do you and you've seen a little bit of it in the preseason that they are thinking about this. I mean, they're screening for one another. They're working off of each other. It's not like, LaMelo runs up, gets a screen from Nick Richards. Next possession, Brandon Miller comes up and gets a screen from Nick Richards. Like, there's all kinds of interplay. And if I trust anyone to figure it out, it's going to be Charles Lee, who was in Boston where they had to constantly balance Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and figure out how those 2 work together. And they figured it out and they won a championship. So, like, I'm not even really concerned. I'm not trying to, like, plant seeds of doubt. They're like, oh, LaMelo and Brandon can't work and they've got to figure out a way to move on from LaMelo. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that now, in late game situations, I think it will be very interesting to see who's taking that last shot. I think it's going to be Brandon Miller. I think just more and more this thing is going to evolve into Brandon Miller, both from the perspective of being the leader on the court, but I think you're going to see him take a vocal leadership role off the court. And it's not that the thing is, like, if that's going to happen, it should happen with a guy like LaMelo, who doesn't seem very interested, at least all the outer appearances that I've seen. It doesn't seem he's like interested in having the, like, I'm the guy on the team. Like, he just wants to hoop. So if you're going to have that situation with a guy, let it be LaMelo and not, Jimmy Butler or, a sort of Kobe Bryant minded player who is like, I got to be the guy.
Yeah, the Mamba mentality is what you speak of.
I don't think LaMelo has that, and that's not a slight against LaMelo. All of these players mentally are constructed differently. You can be great in all kinds of different ways. I'm just saying, like, that's never been the vibe that I've gotten from LaMelo. It's a little bit of the vibe that I get from Brandon.
Yeah. No, and the thing for me, I guess it's also like, where do you get your shots to? So if you're looking for a big shot from behind the line, then Brandon's got you. But and go get you a bucket, Brandon and LaMelo still have that. The whole shot diet thing for Brandon is still interesting to me. That was a point of conversation after the last preseason game. He had the thrunk. That was awesome. Fantastic. National highlight packages. They picked it all up, right? It was also the only 2-point field goal he hit. It doesn't mean that I'm really worried about it. It just means what else do you have a part of your game when they're pressing so much on you at the top of the key? And they did a great job of creating open looks for Brandon, right? Like there were a couple of wide open 3-pointers for Brandon to be able to sink them, and that's fantastic. He still has great screen navigation. The usage stuff will be fascinating. You're right, especially at the end of the game. LaMelo, Brandon, are we going to get both of them? Are we going to get 50-50 split between those two? So we'll see. The good news is we have a regular season to get to, and we don't have any more preseason games. Preseason, it's no longer for the reason here, Doug. What is the regular season for? Have we ever defined what the regular season is for?
I mean, I'd like it to be for wins. I'd like it to be for the big dub hat behind me. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. It hasn't been that way. Regular season is for praying that the team stays healthy.
Regular season's for results.
There you go. I like it, yeah.
Whether good or bad. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
We'll get to some other game observations, the player individual performances, and maybe why this team eventually lost in overtime. That's still to come here on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Hims. Guys, we know this. Your sex life, it's important, but your schedule is busy, so you don't always have the time to go to the doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your own couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. Yeah, that's fantastic. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits whatsoever. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's Hims, Hims. That's hims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Prices vary based on the product and subscription plan. More Locked On Hornets ahead. So, Doug, when we talked with Charles Lee at Media Day, I asked him about Buddy Ball, Missoula Ball, both offenses taking a bunch of threes, a healthy dose of three-point shots. And he said it wasn't nearly as much about the volume rather than it was about the quality of shot that you're getting. Okay, yeah, that's fair, and that makes a lot of sense. Even then, I knew, dog, y'all are about to shoot a lot of threes. I mean, I know what's going to happen. The volume is going to go up, and it's because you view it as a much higher quality shot, but I know the volume is going to go up. And boy, has it in the preseason. Like, Brandon has been shooting a ton. We know about LaMelo, who shoots a ton anyway. 42 three-point attempts, and they shot 41% rounded up. So, hell yeah, I'll take 42 three-point attempts if you shoot over 40, but over 43 point attempts, it's a lot, and I expect a lot of the same as we get to the real thing, Doug.
And look, and if you do that across an entire season, I mean, you're going to be in the playoff conversation. Like, those are the kind of numbers if you just do the math. But the question is, can you maintain that? And if you're betting on this, if you want to go on FanDuel, if you can get some numbers on this, I would struggle to bet on it. I would bet more on the variance, that it's going to go up sometimes and down sometimes. And, that's the struggle. Those teams that you mentioned, they had superstars that when the shots weren't falling could get to the rim. And I think that's going to be the biggest question for the Hornets. Do they have those kinds of players that on those nights can make up for it in other ways? But it's not just the total number of three-point shots that's gone up. It's the three-point rate. So right now in the preseason, that rate of three-point shots to their overall field goal attempts has been 44.6. That's the total number of three-point field goal attempts, 44.6 per game. The rate has been 49%. That's fourth in the preseason among NBA teams. They were 16th last season in three-point attempt rate at 39%. So they weren't awful. They were taking an average number of threes, I guess, or a median number of threes. But if this preseason holds, and I was listening to Tom Haberstroh on the Kevin O'Connor podcast, the new one that he's doing for Yahoo, and Tom, who looks at the numbers a lot, says that three-point attempt rate in the preseason is one of these like team numbers that you can actually look at and say, that's a sticky number. That's going to carry over into the regular season. Some things don't, as you're experimenting and you're playing a lot of guys that aren't going to get regular season minutes. Some of the numbers you throw away. But three-point attempt rate comes down to coaches saying, we're going to do some stuff. We're going to give you license to do it, and we're going to run some stuff that's going to help get those drive those 3-point shot opportunities. And it helps that you have LaMelo and Brandon who can pull up literally from anywhere and get a decent 3-point look.
Yeah, and I'm actually, I'm kind of surprised by that and not at the same time that that's such a sticky number as you put it, because I could see, okay, this is the time to work on shooting. We'll get these shots up during the preseason. We still want to take the right kind of shots, but if you see the open three, just go ahead and let it fly. Maybe in the regular season you would feel more comfortable putting the ball on the deck and driving to the cup. But it does make sense that that's just like a general outline of an offense that you want to run anyway. And so if you're talking about the general outlines in which you want to practice how you're really going to play, so that makes a lot of sense to me in that regard. And Doug, I just looking at the practice, when I was there at Media Day, and I was on the practice court, we were broadcasting there. They were doing all the photo shoots and stuff. There was a picture I took of a shot chart over to the side.
Hot shot chart.
And they had a bunch of green dots and red dots, okay? And the green dots, there were 5 of them all across the 3-point line. Uh-huh. And they were all above a point per shot attempt is what I'm assuming these stats mentioned to be. Okay. The red dots are all just a step inside the 3-point line, right. And they're all, of course, below a point per shot attempt. Mm-hmm. There are 2 other green dots, one at the free throw line and one in the restricted area. The other red ones were just outside. This is the shot diet Charles Lee wants to instill upon his team.
Yeah.
And it's right there. I think it's a constant reminder that these are the types of shots, these are the types of field goal attempts that help offenses. And the red ones are the types of field goal attempts that generally hurt offenses. And it's a constant reminder. As soon as they step onto the practice court, they have that chart up there for every player to see. And that's why I think you're seeing what we're seeing in the preseason. And it's what we saw with the Celtics with Lee on staff. It's what we saw with the Bucks with Lee on staff. It's what we saw with the Hawks with Lee on staff. So we're going to see a lot of that here this year. And I'm excited to see this type of offense.
And when you're talking about quality of threes, to me that means, are you generating wide open looks from above the break? And are you generating a decent percentage of corner threes? And are you hitting those shots? The Hornets, I think mostly because of personnel, had a problem of not being able to hit open 3-point shots. And they would have open guys in the corner because those guys would be like JT Thor or Dennis Smith Jr., who defenses weren't worried about. So can they generate the wide open looks above the break? Can they, because I think that above the break 3 is going to be easy for guys like LaMelo, who can pull it up from deep. Brandon can pull it up from deep too and shoot over the top. Both those guys are tall, so they can shoot over the top of their matchups. Those are going to be easy to generate, but the corner threes are all about what? Penetration, getting into the rim, moving the basketball, switching sides. That's the hard stuff of offense. That does take energy, that takes focus, that takes decision making. And so, will they be able to do that? That's the question. And then the question beyond that is, when the shots aren't falling, are you able to get to that other important green dot?
That's
maybe
right.
The most important green dot of offense in the NBA, and that's at the free throw line. Can you generate enough points at the free throw line to help even out the variance between nights that everybody's on fire and nights when, they can't shoot?
Yeah, 1.5, right? It's the only green dot. I love that. Green dot shots. That's going to be a thing.
Green dot shots on the hot shot chart.
Oh, that's pretty
why
good.
They pay me the big bucks, folks.
That's pretty good. It's the only point per shot attempt above 1.5. So you're right. And the other one, the other highest, right, is in the restricted area. You brought up the Celtics having the guys that could do that as well. If they weren't hitting threes, they did have guys that could get into the paint and score. The thing about that, if you listen to the Low Post podcast, one of the things that Zach Lowe would say constantly, because they were talking about the best team in the NBA, borderline every episode. So he mentioned and repeated some of the takes. We'll do that because we're a daily podcast. We understand how it goes. But he would always discuss how he would like the shots at the rim. He would like to see that go up. And the Celtics were always just a little further down than usual. Now, they had the guys to do it. We know Jaylen Brown is an all-NBA player. He's not Jaylen Clown anymore, is he, Doug? With the championship, did he graduate from Jaylen Clown in Doug Branson's eyes?
Oh, wow.
A finals MVP and an Eastern Conference Finals MVP? Oh, he's graduated, Doug.
He's certainly above Devin Snooker.
I know that. And Jason Tatum also, right? Like, Zach wanted to see those stars get to the rim a little more. I'll say I would love to see it from the backcourt here with the Hornets, but also Charles Lee already knows how to coach that style of offense, even if you can't get to the cup as much as you would want. And Myles will help you. I think Myles is going to be that guy.
That's where his critical role is going to be. If Myles has got to not only get to the rim, he's got to hit it, because last season he was not alone in this. But last season, there were a lot of bunny missers on this team. They got to cut that out. Yeah. When you get to the rim and you're somewhat open, you got to be able to finish. You got to put the ball in the cup. And that's going to be, if this team does surprise and shock the entire NBA and get into the playoff discussion, it's going to be because LaMelo and Brandon were hot from three virtually all season. And you had Miles Bridges driving constantly, putting pressure on the rim, getting more open looks for those guys. And you had a healthy Mark Williams being able to anchor your defense and provide some pressure at the rim, because it's not going to come from some of the other centers on this team. Like, it's got to be Mark Williams guarding off the paint.
Last team stat before we get to some more individual performances. I'll say 28 assists. That number is always going to be pretty high if you're making a lot of three-pointers, but I did think the ball movement was pretty strong last night. Really liked that hot potato style where it's going to the open man. There was a nice rotation, swing. Grant Williams hits Brandon Miller, top of the key. I think the ball movement here I thought was really nice to see. You're smiling. We got to get to your smiling before we get to the last segment. What you got?
I'm smiling because I was thinking, yes, they moved the ball to each other. They moved the ball to the other team a lot. They did. Now, most of that was the kids, and I want to talk about them, the guys that may or may not make this regular rotation. Though I think there are a couple of these guys will definitely make the roster, but the regular rotation. But the kids were turning it over a ton. I mean, you had you had 3 for Miller. You had 1 for Nick Richards. That's LaMelo had 2.
Starting 5 wasn't bad. Yeah, starting 5 it really wasn't
bad. But Nick Smith 7. All right, but let's talk about it. We'll talk about the kids.
That number, I don't. Yeah. Oh my God. 7
turn. That's hard to do.
No,
I think you should get some kind of weird opposite badge for that. 7 turnovers in a game. In how many minutes? How many minutes did Nick Smith Jr.?
No, stop it. We need to let's focus on this because I want to get to the team number. That's what I want to get to. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
These everywhere.
Yeah, I can't wait to tell you how many team turnovers. If you haven't looked at the box score already, I want to tell you the team amount of turnovers. Then we can do some rapid fire stanging or clanging. That's all still to come on Locked On Hornets. Hey, NBA fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL fans, you can get on the action too, even if there's still a second half of the season to be played. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All right, Doug, tell me, if we have $200 in bonus bets because of the great people at FanDuel, how should we spend our money? What are some options for us?
Well, the Hornets are playing the Rockets to open up the regular season. A little guess the line here. You want to guess the line?
I'm going to go Rockets at home. They are favored by 4.5. I'll go 5.5.
Oh, wow. Great adjustment there because the actual number is 6.5. They're 6.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 233.5. So there you go.
I love some guess the spread. That's my favorite game. But you don't have to guess if you don't want to. You can just go to FanDuel right now and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Okay, the grand reveal. You mentioned it. Nick Smith Jr. had 7 turnovers last night. KJ Simpson had 6 turnovers last night.
I'm doing the math. That's a game's worth. Well, right, hold on. Right there, that's a game's worth of turnovers.
A game's worth.
That's 13. Yep. That's a good game of turnovers.
Yes. I'll put it all in perspective in just a moment as well. Tijan Salon, 4. Vasa Micic, 4. Not a kid, but was off the bench. Diabate, 3. And then the only starter, Brandon Miller, he also had 3 turnovers. The other guys had 2 and 1. That is a total of 32 turnovers. That is 32 turnovers. Just to put that in perspective, I'm looking up, StatMuse says that the most amount of turnovers committed in a single game last year was by the Warriors, who had 28 turnovers. Wow. 28! The Hornets had 4 more. And the Warriors had 28 against OKC on the road. Here's another interesting stat for you, okay? So we just talked about KJ Simpson and Nick Smith Jr. combining for 13 turnovers last night. Boston actually led the league in turnovers last year in a good way. They only committed 11.9 turnovers per game, and they were number 1 in the league. They did not commit many TOs, baby. Not this team, not this squad, not last night. What do you, I don't know, just your thoughts on an astonishing number, really. I don't care if it is the preseason.
It's crazy. And again, a vast majority of those were the kids. Although I will say turnovers generally have been a problem for the Hornets in the preseason, something that they've really got to work out. And I think that, Charles Lee's put a lot of focus on the defense, how much of the focus has been on the offense, how much of a rhythm have they built with what they're trying to execute there. But it's going to be something that they monitor. It's like you've got, You do have a lot of players that are still somewhat young and inexperienced, and like if you do that in the playoffs or in the play-in, you're going to lose the game, and so they've really got to figure that out. But yeah, 32 it's a crazy number. I don't expect it to be that bad when we get to the regular season.
I mean, sure, yeah, you would lose almost every game if you
you can't do that unless you have like a James Harden, LeBron James level creator. Like that's where I see that, not 32, but like or Steph Curry. That's where you see the inflated numbers when you have guys that are like trying to create but they create so much that it sort of offsets the turnovers.
Right. That's the thing. It's the fact that they had 28 assists too. So they're moving the basketball. Sometimes the Pacers catch it. Sometimes
I mean they almost won the game. Like it was pretty close. They were pretty close to winning this game.
It's remarkable. But that's why, is because they were hitting threes. That helps. It's because they were moving the ball well when it wasn't stolen. So yeah, those are all the reasons. Crazy stuff. Where do you want to start with individual stanging or clanging? I'll give you the floor.
I liked what I saw out of Tijan Salan in this game. 7 points, 14 rebounds. I thought his composure in the third quarter stood out to me when the Hornets went to all of their bench players, but the Pacers, who I think were only on their 4th preseason game, they may still have one more to go, but they were obviously trying to get in gear for the regular season. They were playing their starters in the third quarter, and I thought the Hornets as a team in general, KJ Simpson in particular and Tijan, held their composure. But at the end of the game, Tijan Salan, with a possession that they really needed to go well, catches the inbounds pass and just yeets it into like the 6th row of the Pacers stadium. But not only that, but on the opposite end of the court that you would want to throw it to, because it would have been had anyone been able to catch it, it would have been a backcourt violation. So it was just like, it's one of those things, and I said it on the postgame live that we did for every Hornets box score. It's the kind of thing that makes me think like, there's so much that I've loved about Salan, and I think what he's told me with his performance in the preseason is that he is way, way ahead of the schedule that I assumed he would be on. And Grant Williams has said that a little bit too in his comments about where TJ is, but he's not ready to be a regular rotation player. If your concern is, I want to compete and win every single night, like the shooting has been great, but there's just these moments that you go, okay, you can't trust him entirely yet, like you could trust even a Cody Martin, someone that's not going to shoot the ball as well. It's all about, if you want to compete and win every night in the NBA, it's all about all the guys that touch the ball. You have to be reasonably confident that they know what they're doing at all times, and I'm not there yet with Salan.
I'm looking at perspective here. I've been just typing most blank in a single NBA game, the 2023-2024 season. My tabs are full of them right now. I looked up steals because 14 seems like a lot. It is a lot, but 20 was the most amount of steals last night. 14 is what the Pacers had. Personal fouls is up there, though. Yeah, a lot of Hornets fouls. How about 30? You like that? You like 30 fouls from your Hornets last night?
I do like it, and I'll tell you why, because I think this was a storyline from this game too. After the Knicks game, which I thought was their worst defensive performance, both in just like actual results, but also in attitude, they came out, the starters and the kids came out and were super physical with a Pacers team that also plays physically. So I thought they matched that. They rebounded off that Knicks game, and I thought they rebounded better, literally. So yeah, I'm okay with more fouls if it's because you're physical, not because you're being lazy on defense and slapping down.
No, it makes sense. I would be more okay with it if Charles Lee wasn't such an advocate of defending without fouling, but you are right. I do like the physicality.
But so much of this preseason to me has been Charles Lee letting everyone extend themselves out. I just almost knocked over something in my office.
That's a foul.
Sorry, yeah, I know, contact. Extend themselves out, whether it be three-point shooting or defensive intensity. It's like, let's get them out in front of where they need to be and then rein them back in. You know what I'm saying? Which I think for a young coach with a young team is like super important. You don't want to come in and start like throwing down all of these like, we're going to do it my way. These are the rules. And if you break the rules, you get in trouble. No, let them go out and then say, all right, now you're aggressive. Great. Let's like learn. Let's reel it back in. Let's learn how to be aggressive and focus that energy. And that's what I hope we see in the first like 5 to 10 games of the regular season.
Mike Tomlin said it best. I'd rather tell a dog whoa than sick 'em. That's it. That's it right there. By the way, 34 fouls was the most amount of fouls in a single game that happened 4 times last year. So Hornets almost got there. They were close. Okay, so you want to go with Tijan Stangen. Yeah, not a whole lot of highlights from Tijan in the first half. He did have, he just played the most amount of minutes, but the plus-minus was not pretty for him with all the pluses in the starting lineup.
2 for 11, not a great shooting night.
No.
I think he was 1 of 7. I think he was 0 for 6 before he hit his first three-point shot, but that was a slick three-point shot that he hit that first
off the
one.
dribble.
It was like off the bounce. I mean, it's like he's got it. In terms of shooting, he's got it. And I think I'm confident, more confident than I was when they drafted him, that he's going to put all of this together. It's just going to take time.
Yeah, he's doing stuff. I like when my raw rookie does some stuff. What about Cody Martin, Doug? The reason I bring his name up, he didn't play a lot. He had a nice rebound finish. I believe it was an and one, but I know it was a nice second chance point there. Charles Lee called him a breath of fresh air. And I think it's because defensively they were lacking a little bit in that Knicks game that we just talked about. You can tell maybe Lee is just really good at selling it. I think Lee's a genuine guy. I'm not trying to call him a liar per se. Just he seems to really like a healthy Cody Martin on his roster. Whether he gets it throughout the season, I don't know. But at least Charles Lee after the game seemed to really like a healthy Cody Martin. I don't know if there was enough here to call him Stangen, but I do think in the 8 minutes that he played, hit a three-pointer too. That was with like the botched LaMelo possession where LaMelo, he's begging for a foul. Cody's like, hey, we got to get this ball up. The buzzer's about to sound off, and then he swishes it, and LaMelo goes and talks to the official. I don't know. Nice little sample size for somebody trying to make it back in this league.
Yeah, same with Grant. Like, I think both of those guys are slow they're getting the engines warmed up, where all these other guys, Brandon, LaMelo, they've been healthy the whole time. We're going to see this with Mark, too, if he comes back for the first regular season. I don't expect him to be, my critiques will be cautioned by this idea that he's got to get warmed up before we see what Mark Williams really is. So, yeah, I'm not worried about Cody Martin's performance so much as I'm worried about his health.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
Lee wants Martins and Josh Greens to cause chaos on the floor defensively, and that's really it, to inspire the rest of the team to match their energy. That's what, to get Brandon to match that energy, to get the LaMelo to match that energy. That's their role, and they've been missing it most of preseason because Josh Green seemingly got hurt in that first game. We haven't seen him since. So, I can see why he's excited about that.
All positive here. I'm going to give you one more Stangen to close out the show. Musa Diabate. I like.
My God.
Oh, yeah. You like that? 3 blocks, 5 of 5 from the field, just running rim to rim and being a force. LaMelo had a really nice slip pass on a screen and roll action to Diabate, who finishes strong. We know about the block that he had in one of the home games. It was I believe it was the second home game of preseason where Myles gave him a shout out because of a key block at one of the end of the opposing offensive possessions. Diabate, a 2-way contract immediately, right? Somebody we weren't familiar with because he didn't play with the Hornets in Summer League. We were hoping it would go to a Mo Gee, experimenting with Jake Stevens. Diabate, I'm glad Diabate has this 2-way contract because he's earned it in the preseason. Really like what I've seen from him.
The block shot that he had on Wiseman near the end of the game where he comes out of nowhere off the screen and jumps so high and almost hit his head on the rim. One of those plays where he kind of had to duck right at the end to keep from hitting his head on the back of the backboard. Not the rim, the backboard. But the block shot was incredible. And he was also, I thought, very physical with Wiseman and the possessions that he had against Turner, because he's kind of he would be a smaller center. I mean, it kind of sizes out, I think, more like a power forward.
Like a brute of a power forward, because he's strong, but right, like he's not as tall. That's just what
But
it
he
is.
can hold his own at the center position. Like, I think you're going to worry about guys shooting over the top of him in the lane, but like he's super smart, big effort. Where does he fit here? Because he's already on a two-way contract. I would say, like, it depends on how committed they are to winning and competing, because like I could almost see him getting minutes early on over Salon. Like you wait on Salon until later in the season, or maybe if there's an injury at center, you bypass Taj Gibson and go right to Diabate to fill that role. I think there are multiple opportunities for him to get. It just won't. I don't think it's going to happen at the beginning of the season.
I feel it. If you're a doomsday scenario in the front court, just like you were last year, I feel a lot better about Diabate being out there than Nathan Mensah.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, that's the contrast, right? Think about Nathan Mensah doing anything close to what Diabate did on that Wiseman play. There's just zero chance that was happening.
Right. Like me, some Diabate. So shout out to him. Maybe, development, maybe like feel better about trading Nick Richards. I thought there was some real, I know Nick Richards offensively had a nice shooting night. I thought there were some real defensive issues with him just flailing about at a Myles Turner fake at the mid range, just opening his hips on baseline drives. He still gives you effort. It's not been great for Nick Richards, in my opinion.
No, but I will say about Diabate and all these kids, I love all of the guys that are either not going to make the roster or go to Greensboro or get limited minutes in this regular season. I love the slate of players.
Doesn't it feel like it? Doesn't it feel different? I was thinking about this exact same thing.
No, it doesn't feel different. It is different because there is a talent level that they've committed to bringing in, and notice how it makes everyone else play better. That's the whole deal. It helps you fairly evaluate. Honestly, I mean, we weren't trying to get too negative, because Nick Smith Jr., same thing. He's trying to work himself back in after an injury, but like, you can kind of fairly evaluate 4 of 16 from the field for Nick Smith Jr. when everyone else around him is making good decisions and he's turning the ball over 7 times. You can go, okay, I can have some fair questions about what Nick Smith Jr. is going to be able to do this season, because all that other talent around him is playing better and they're matching what Lee wants this team to do. It's a beautiful thing. And I really have fallen in love with this, like, bench B brigade group, whatever you want to call them. The baby bees, really. They're on their way to Greensboro, but man, I love them.
Mm-hmm. The Burrow bees is what we can call them. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods. And that does include YouTube, where you can see Doug Branson and David Walker very comfortably go live. I checked out last night. Like, that is, you got David. David is chilling. If you're watching on YouTube, David is chilling on his back, hair all the way out. You're like putting something in the microwave. You're like heating up some little snack before you go to bed. I love the midnight snack vibes going live on YouTube and letting people see it all.
Oh, I think you might have just come up with the name for the live. I think midnight snacks might be, or late night snacks might be the name of the live feed moving forward. Because
midnight snacks has to be.
That's intentional. Because a lot of the stuff that we've done in the past has been like, I'm going to sit at a desk, and kind of what we do here. I'm going to sit at a desk. I got a microphone. We got headphones.
I don't try too hard, right? I'm fine.
Well, I mean, no, we don't. We try to not try too hard.
It's a joke. I'm pointing to the neon Locked On Hornets sign by saying I'm not trying too hard. Yes, I clearly am trying to button
sometimes
this thing
with
up.
facts and figures and stats and truth. We fumble the ball there sometimes, but. Yeah, with our setups, it's great. For this feed that we're trying to do, and really every Hornets box score is more about, like, you're just hanging with the boys. It's just like a kind of a low-key sort of deal. We're just hanging, talking ball. And I think we accomplished it, and we'll keep going.
Every Hornets box score. Go check out the Substack and then text them on the subtext info. I'm Walker Mail. You can hang out with the boys on WFNZ if you want to, 12 to 3 p.m., Wes and Walker. And you can also check us out on the website, WFNZ.com, anywhere you get your pods for the digital content that is uploaded to those platforms. Have a great weekend. Getting closer. It's the real thing, about to start soon, and we'll be there to preview it all.